On today's Locked On Nationals, we continue to talk about the Kyle Finnegan move and really get into, do you feel better about the Nationals spending this offseason after that move? It can go two roads. There's only one road they're going down.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, I am your host, Ryan Clary. You can catch me over on Twitter at RyanClary11 and as well as our show page at LO_Nationals for all your latest Nationals news and notes. Make sure to check us out over on Twitter. And while you're at it, search up Locked On Nationals wherever you get your podcast, whether it's on Apple, Spotify, and of course, over on YouTube for the video version of this podcast. Again, search Locked On Nationals and hit that subscriber button, please. Later on in today's program, we will be discussing some of the latest rumors with the Washington Nationals. Number one, Ken Rosenthal had a piece about the Nationals just this morning. I read it while I was in bed drinking my coffee. You're going to want to hear about that because he does talk about what the Nationals want, but also, well, before I get into it, there's good and there's bad. I'll give you that takeaway a little bit later on in today's program. Second segment of the show, the Nats will make a splash this season, in my opinion. But again, I want to reiterate this point. It's not going to be coming of this free agency class. It's going to be on the trade market. I'll explain why I think that and really kind of why both these things marry together. But I'll explain that a little further in the second segment of today's program. But we start talking about, do you feel better or worse about the Nats spending post-Finney trade? And there's two arguments to be made, but I'll make mine here to begin the program. But before that, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. So let's get started with this. I feel a lot worse about the Nationals spending this offseason. You just have to at this point in time. Friday night, when the Nationals moved off from Kyle Finnegan, when they non-tendered him, chose not to pay him $8.5 million or go to an arbitration hearing, they just said, you know what? Your goods have been pretty good over the last 5 seasons, but we're done. We're not going to pay you the extra money here. We don't think you're worth that. That was what was basically said to Kyle Finnegan. Now, you can go down two different roads here, and let's explain that. Maybe the Nationals are just saving every penny that they can to try and go out there and make a splash move because of that Finnegan move. Maybe they see that $8.5 million being valuable enough to maybe chase another free agent. That's kind of like the half glass full approach here. And that is a fair observation to make. But over the last few seasons, how can you feel that way? Since the Nationals won the 2019 World Series, let's go through their payrolls. In 2019, they had the 7th highest payroll in all of baseball. That's good. That's about where they should be. 2020, 7th. Then in 2021, 13th. 2022, 20th. 2023, 25th. 2024, the 24th. And so far, entering 2025, they have the 28th highest payroll in all of baseball. And right now, they only have $32 million on the books, with some of that being Steven Strasburg, who's not even going to be playing. Let me tell you this right now. If you feel good about what the Nationals are doing as far as their payroll goes, then I wish I had whatever coffee that you had this morning, because I just don't. Right now, their highest paid player on the active roster is Luis Garcia with about $5.4 million entering this season. Then after that, it's Keibert Ruiz. And then shortly after that, it's Mackenzie Gore at $3.1 million. The Nationals, they need to spend money. It's over with now. And in good news, the Nationals, they have the money. You have the prospects up in the bigs. You have Brady House, who's close to making his major league debut. And you feel as if you kind of are reaping the benefits of a pretty long rebuild here. Now is the time to spend. There are no more excuses that I have made in the past as to why they shouldn't be spending, but now is the time to do that. You have to go out there and find your Jason Ward. And it's not next offseason, it's this offseason. But overall, I feel worse about where the Nationals are sitting here as an organization. And let me just get this straight. It's not on Mike Rizzo. In my opinion, this Mike Rizzo people are here. Let me kind of take that back real quick. People are really hard on Mike Rizzo for whatever reason out there. In this situation, this is not a Mike Rizzo thing, in my opinion. Mike Rizzo is he already knows the budget of this offseason, what they can spend and what they can't spend. Obviously, Mike Rizzo made a decision based on the Kyle Finnegan and kind of what you see his value at and said, he's not part of this budget. Now, who knows what that actual quote-unquote budget is, whether he can go out there and spend $50 million entering 2025. I don't know what it could be. But one thing stands true is that the Lerner family, the owners of this team, they have been cutting costs. In some ways, which are smart, you should not invest into a bad product, the Nationals have been the last few seasons here. But now that you have these cheap prospects, you have Dylan Cruz making pennies on the dollar. You have Mackenzie Gore making $3.1 million. Josiah Gray, he's going to be cheap as well. Luis Garcia, James Wood, all these different younger players who are making close to nothing. Jake Irvin is making $800,000 this season. That is nothing for a professional baseball player. Now is the time to go out there and make that splash. Whether it is a big starting pitcher, whether it is going to be a big third baseman or a first baseman or a left fielder, whatever it is, the Nationals, they have to spend. There is no more wait and see mode. There is no more, well, let's let these prospects develop. They have developed. They are here. So I feel overall worse about where the Nationals are as far as spending in free agency goes. And if you feel better, tweet at me at Ryan Clary 11. Comment on the Locked On Nationals YouTube page. Because there is an argument to be made about this being better. But one thing that stands true throughout baseball and really just throughout life is there is a track record. The track record right now with the Lerner family is they have been cutting costs. This is a big market. The seventh highest market as far as sports markets go in Major League Baseball. And really across sports. Most powerful city in the world. This is not a small market. But over the last 5+ years, it has been operated as if it is a small market. Maybe that's their long-term goal, but I just don't think that should be. And you have the ability to spend. You have the ability to make improvements on this roster, to add veterans, to add another bat, to add a starting pitcher. And at this point in time, cutting away $8.5 million for Finney, I don't think that's really doing too much. I think that kind of just goes into the narrative of the Nationals not spending money. Because again, if you look at the payroll, they are 28th in all of baseball sitting here today. 28th. The Oakland A's, and I forgot the 29th team. That's the only team that you're ahead of at this point. How bad is that? It's atrocious. And in fact, at this point in time, if you're a Nationals fan, do you expect them to get in the top 15 as far as payrolls go this offseason? I don't think so. The New York Mets, I was looking at the payrolls entering this year. They are off the books. They have a ton of money cleared up. And you know who's a free agent? Number 22, Juan Soto. Teams in this division, they will be making moves. Whether it's the Mets, the Phillies, and of course the Atlanta Braves. They always make a smart move or two. I feel a lot worse about where the Nationals are this offseason than even what I did last year. Because at first, going into this past season, I was like, maybe the Nationals can spend. I think they can. But now, after what they did this past Friday night, I feel a lot worse about where we are heading this future. So we'll see ultimately what they decide to do. But man, that was a gut punch to say the least. Thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Next, let's do this. The Nats will make a splash, but it's not going to come through free agency. It will be the trade market. I've also got some quotes to back that up from President of Baseball Ops, Mike Rizzo. So we'll discuss that. Before we get into it, though, I'm going to tell you guys about our friends over at Omaha Steaks. And nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. This year, skip the holiday hustle and bustle and save 50% off site-wide during their cyber sale at omahasteaks.com. Plus, get a $30 reward card when you shop early and score an extra $30 off with promo code MLB. With 5 generations of experience, Omaha Steaks consistently delivers the world's best steak experience, and their gifting experts have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages starting at $89.99. From legendary steaks to mouth-watering desserts and more, save 50% off site-wide during the cyber sale at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code MLB and a $30 reward when you shop early. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with promo code MLB. Minimum purchase may apply. Thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. So later on in today's program, we do have a little bit of an update from Ken Rosenthal as to what to expect with the Washington Nationals. And I will say, you did mention the name Jason Worth, and you all know what that means, or maybe you don't. But I'm going to tell you why the Nationals are more likely to make a splash on the trade market rather than a splash free agency signing. And Mark Zuckerman from MASNsports.com, he actually wrote about this just a few weeks ago. Before 2012, this is a trade that we all kind of forget about. Do you remember when the Nationals made that splash for Gio Gonzalez, who then we gave up multiple top prospects in the system, and the Nationals, they got back left-handed pitcher Gio Gonzalez, who finished top 3 in the Cy Young race that year, and ultimately was a National all the way through 2017 and 2018 as well before he got traded to the Brewers. But Gio Gonzalez is kind of one of those forgotten pieces. He's a fan favorite. We all remember him. But you always forget about the move that the Nationals had to make to get him here in D.C. I expect that kind of a deal this offseason. And Rizzo said it himself earlier on this offseason at the GM meetings here just a few weeks ago. Quote, "We have great depth in the minor league system," Rizzo said at season's end. "I think that if we chose to dip into the system to make a trade, I think we certainly could pull that off and still keep some depth in the organization." I think right then and there, Mike Rizzo tipped his hand on what the Nationals are kind of setting their sights towards in 2025. Again, marrying the first topic here, the Nationals are not really that likely, in my opinion, to go out there and sign a Pete Alonso, to sign a Max Fried or a Corbin Burns, those big kind of names out there on the market, and certainly not a Juan Soto. I think we can kiss that boat goodbye. But I do expect them to make a splash in the name of a trade. They do, and again, the Nationals, they have a top 10 farm system sitting here today. You have the number 1 prospect in all of baseball, Dylan Cruz, who his prospect status will run out in the first week of the MLB season. But still, you're not going to be trading him away. He's part of the future. But you do have depth. You have Yohandy Morales. You have Seaver King. You have other guys who could be traded like a Dalen Lyle. Or maybe if you get really crazy, you throw out a Harleen Susanna or a Travis Sakura type, someone of that standard there. I wouldn't expect them to trade Sakura at this point, but still, if the price is right, if you're getting back a legit kind of starting caliber pitcher, then maybe he is in the return package. But I think at this moment, I don't feel good about them spending. What I do feel good about is where their farm system stands. Because when you get into the deep depths of this organization, the Nationals, they do have some talent. And they really do have a lot of different guys that they could potentially trade off. Like, again, just kind of go through the names that I think could be trade bait. Well, it's a left-handed pitching prospect, Alex Clemmie, Cade Cavalli. You could go out there and try to trade Robert Hassel III. Some of your international guys like Andrew Lara as well, who just kind of broke out this season. Forget the prospect rankings. Forget where these guys are in the organization. These are some of the bigger names who have the potential to be very good ball players down the line. And I think at this moment, the Nationals have been building up this farm system for two different reasons. Number one, to help the major league team here, to develop a lot of younger guys who come up and then be just good baseball players for this organization. But also number two, this is what the good teams do. You trade some of your deeper depth guys in order to get major league talent through the door if you can't spend in free agency. And this is what the small market teams do. I'm not saying the Nationals should be run like a small market, but over the years, this is what they have been doing. And I think this is what makes the most sense sitting here today. Another name that people have kind of forgotten about, who in my opinion is really talented coming off Tommy John surgery, is left-handed pitcher Jake Bennett. Second-round pick out of Oklahoma just last year. And he had a 3.14 ERA in his first 15 starts. 63-inning pitch, 73 strikeouts, and had a 1.21 whip on his 2023 campaign before getting shut down with Tommy John surgery. The last time the Nationals had this kind of depth in the organization was probably the mid to early 2010s, when names like Anthony Rendon, Trey Turner, Juan Soto, Victor Robles, all those guys were still in the organization and young minor league prospects. That's the last time. It's been over 10 years, really, since the Nationals had this kind of talent in the door. So I think at this point, the Nationals, they're ready to take that next jump. They're ready to kind of go out there and make that next postseason run. But at what cost? I don't think the cost is going to come in free agency. It's probably going to come at the trade market. And you might be wondering, well, what kind of name is out there? I think a Garrett Crochet from the Chicago White Sox, that can make sense. Or whoever else comes loose. Whether it's one of the Seattle Mariners and one of their starting pitchers. Who knows at this point in time? But do you feel any confidence in this Nationals team making a splash move? If you do, it probably should come via the trade market. So thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Next, let me tell you guys about some rumors here because, again, there's multiple things here. Ken Rosenthal wrote a story about some of it being about the Nationals and, quote, the Nats are looking for the next Jason Worth, but also a name that I've been talking about that I really want on this free agency market. He said that is probably likely out of the possibility for the Washington Nationals. I can give you that name a little bit later on, but of course, I got to tell you guys about our friends over at FanDuel, and we have told you all about FanDuel, and of course, now you can get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. And you get a hunch in the middle of the game. You can check out the latest stats, give you live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Again, you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com, and never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. let's get into this. Number one, I want to talk about Dan Patrick after I tell you guys about this story. He said something about Juan Soto that I think was atrocious. I'll pull that up for you a little bit later on in the show today. But Ken Rosenthal of Fox Sports and The Athletic, he wrote about the Nationals today. And one of the headlines of the story was, the Nats are looking for the next Jason Worth. And for those who may not remember, entering the 2011 season, the Nationals made a pretty surprising move by giving Jason Worth a massive contract. Some people thought they overpaid him, but that was kind of when the Nationals told everyone in the baseball world that they are serious contenders. Well, again, we've just kind of been talking about this. In what way does that come? Because in my opinion, the Nationals, they just aren't going to make that move. I think they'll come and do that via the trade market and then extend someone, whether it is a Garrett Crochet or someone of that caliber. That is kind of what I think will be the next Jason Worth move. And they desperately need to do that. But also, he talked about a popular first baseman that is at the top of my wish list for this offseason. And he noted that Pete Alonso, the Mets first baseman who is now a free agent, who's expected to get a pretty big contract, roughly around $150, $170 million maybe. He said that Pete Alonso is likely out of our price range. So now, if that is the case, which I don't think the Nationals are fully out on Pete Alonso, you still have to see what the market indicates, what he's worth, and see if the Nationals will be in that conversation. I think they will be eventually, but at this point, I'm going to trust what Ken Rosenthal is saying here. But I turn my focus to Christian Walker, the Diamondbacks first baseman. Coming off a Gold Glove year, very good defensive first baseman who has similar-ish power to Pete Alonso. He's not going to hit as many home runs as Alonso will, but he'll help you certainly on the offensive side as well. The only thing is with Christian Walker is he's going to be 34 on opening day. That doesn't intrigue me too much. He's older. He's going to cost a pretty decent-sized contract for this Nats team too. And I just don't know how much he'll help us down 5 years from now. I don't think he will be here. Who knows if he'll be a major leaguer in 5 years from now. But certainly the Nationals are going to be in that market to make some signings similar of a Christian Walker type. But I want to talk about this real quick. Dan Patrick, you all know the legendary sports radio host. He's been around ESPN doing his own thing, whatever, blah, blah, blah. He said that Juan Soto, he would not pay Juan Soto $600 million. What a ridiculous take that was. Juan Soto, quote unquote, is not a box office superstar. He's not an Aaron Judge. He's not a Shohei Ohtani. That is what Dan Patrick said, which, by the way, I agree with. He's not a superstar of a Shohei Ohtani. He's not a star of an Aaron Judge. In my opinion, he's not even a Bryce Harper, which I hate to admit. But here's one thing about that. Right now, sitting here today, I think there is one player in baseball that you would take over Juan Soto sitting here right now on November 25th. And that name is Shohei Ohtani, possibly the greatest baseball player that we have ever seen. Other than that, it's Juan Soto for me. This might be a hot take. Maybe I am biased, but Juan Soto is a better baseball player than Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge, he's got the MVPs. He's got the different awards. He's got the home runs. But when it matters most in October, I don't see Aaron Judge hitting the big home run. I see Juan Soto. And think of it this way. Nationals fans, you have seen it from a front seat view for a lot of time. Has Juan Soto ever been in a slump? This is one of the greatest overall hitters that we have ever seen. He hits for power. He has one of the best plate disciplines ever. He takes his walks. He doesn't swing at ball. This guy does everything right from an offensive standpoint. Where does he play in the outfield? That's a question that is fairly asked about Juan. He's a fine outfielder at best. I'll give him that. But he is the second best player in all of baseball, and I thought that was ridiculous. So I had to defend my guy right then and there. Thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. I will catch you guys on the flip side. Have a good one. Go Nats.